Commander Kale stood at the observation deck of the survey vessel Harmony, watching the blue-green planet rotate slowly beneath them. Earth, the locals called it. Such a simple name for what appeared to be an equally simple world. His tentacles twitched with barely contained disappointment as he reviewed the preliminary scans on his datapad. The inhabitants have barely achieved interplanetary travel, his aide Nyx reported with a dismissive click of her mandibles. Primitive chemical rockets, basic satellites, they've only just established a few outposts on their nearest moon. Kale's four eyes focused on the readout. The Galactic Council had high hopes for this system, located as it was on a strategic trade route between the Outer Rim and the core worlds. But these humans, with their limited technology and apparent inability to move beyond their single planet in any meaningful way, seemed hardly worth the diplomatic effort. Their energy production is inefficient, Nyx continued, her voice carrying the clinical detachment common to their species. Fossil fuels, nuclear fission, some renewable sources, no zero-point reactors, no antimatter containment. They're at least 3 centuries behind standard galactic development curves. Through the viewport, Earth continued its ancient dance around its yellow star, oblivious to the scrutiny from above. Kale had surveyed dozens of worlds in his career, and they all followed predictable patterns. Species that reached space quickly usually had certain traits: unified global governments, efficient resource allocation, peaceful internal relations that allowed for rapid technological advancement. What about their social structure? Kale asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Fragmented, Nyx replied immediately. Nearly 200 separate political entities. They still engage in armed conflicts with each other over resources and territory. Their global cooperation is minimal at best. Kale's disappointment deepened. The galaxy was full of species like this, too divided to advance quickly, too primitive, to contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization. They would need at least 5 centuries of development before they'd be ready for first contact, if ever. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication from the bridge. "Commander," Captain Reed's voice crackled through the speakers, "we're receiving an automated signal from the planet's surface. It appears to be some kind of historical archive broadcast." Historical archive? Kale's interest peaked slightly. Sometimes primitive species had interesting cultural developments that made them worth studying, even if they weren't technologically advanced. "Yes, sir. Should we download and analyze it?" Kale looked once more at the seemingly unremarkable world below. Perhaps understanding their history would give him something to include in his report beyond simple dismissal. "Proceed with the download." As the data began flowing into their systems, Kale felt a strange stirring in his chest, something he hadn't experienced in years of routine surveys. Call it intuition, or perhaps just the hope that this mission wouldn't be a complete waste of time. But something told him that Earth might surprise them yet. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. Sarge's Tales. Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. Little did Commander Kale know that he was about to discover something that would fundamentally change how the galaxy viewed humanity forever. The historical archive materialized as a 3-dimensional holographic display in the ship's analysis chamber. Kale and his team gathered around the shimmering projection, watching as Earth's timeline unfolded before them in chronological order. "Beginning analysis with their earliest recorded civilizations," announced Dr. Vale, the ship's xenoarchaeologist. Her specialized equipment hummed as it processed the vast amounts of data. "Interesting. They appear to have developed agriculture independently in multiple locations across their planet." Kale nodded absently. This was standard evolutionary progress, nothing remarkable yet. The hologram shifted, showing ancient human settlements. Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, ancient Egypt, China. "Note the sophistication of their early engineering," Dr. Vale continued, her voice carrying a hint of surprise. "These structures were built without advanced technology, yet they've survived for millennia." Nyx scoffed. "Primitive stone stacking. Impressive for their level, perhaps, but hardly." Her words died as the display focused on the Great Pyramid of Giza. The hologram revealed its internal structure, the precision of its construction, the mathematical principles embedded in its Design. Dr. Vale's instruments buzzed with increasing activity. Commander. Dr. Vale's voice had lost its casual tone. The tolerances on this construction are extraordinary. They achieved precision that rivals our own architectural standards, using nothing but manual tools and geometric knowledge. The timeline advanced. Greek mathematics and philosophy. Roman engineering marvels that spanned continents. Chinese innovations in metallurgy, printing, and navigation. Each civilization built upon the last, but more importantly, they did so while facing constant challenges that would have destroyed less resilient species. Look at this. Dr. Vale highlighted a section showing the Roman aqueduct system. They moved water across hundreds of miles of varied terrain with gravity-fed systems so well engineered that many still function today, thousands of years later. Captain Reed leaned forward from his position near the display controls. Their technological development isn't linear like most species. They have these periodic collapses and rebuilding phases, but each time they emerge stronger. The hologram showed the fall of Rome, the burning of the Library of Alexandria, the Dark Ages. Cale expected this to demonstrate humanity's weakness, their inability to maintain progress. Instead, he watched in growing fascination as knowledge survived in scattered pockets, preserved by individuals who risked everything to keep learning alive. Medieval period, Dr. Vale announced. The display showed monasteries copying manuscripts by hand, Islamic scholars translating and expanding, upon Greek texts, Chinese inventors developing gunpowder and the compass. Even during their supposed dark ages, they never stopped innovating. But notice this. Nix pointed to the timeline. They keep fighting each other, constantly. How can a species advance while wasting so much energy on internal conflict? Dr. Vale's instruments provided the answer. The conflicts appear to accelerate their development rather than hinder it. Competition drives innovation. Each group trying to survive and overcome the others led to rapid advancement in metallurgy, engineering, medicine, strategy. The Renaissance bloomed across the display. Leonardo da Vinci's sketches of flying machines centuries before powered flight. Galileo's telescope revealing the cosmos despite persecution. The printing press spreading knowledge faster than any civilization had achieved before. They're not just advancing technologically, Captain Reed observed. They're advancing intellectually, artistically, philosophically. Most species focus on one area. Cale found himself drawn deeper into the human story. Where he had expected to find primitives stumbling toward basic civilization, he was witnessing something unprecedented. A species that seemed to thrive on adversity, that turned every setback into a stepping stone, that never stopped questioning, exploring, and pushing boundaries. Continue the analysis, he ordered, his dismissive attitude evaporating. I want to see how they reach their current level. The holographic display shimmered as it transitioned to humanity's industrial revolution. Dr. Vale's instruments detected an exponential surge in technological development that made the entire alien crew lean forward in their seats. In less than 2 centuries, they went from manual agriculture to steam power, to electricity, to powered flight. Dr. Vale reported, her voice filled with scientific awe. Most species take millennia to make such leaps. The timeline showed James Watt's steam engine, followed rapidly by railways spanning continents, factories transforming raw materials into complex goods, and cities growing at unprecedented rates. But what caught Commander Cale's attention wasn't the technology itself. It was how quickly humans adapted to and improved upon each innovation. Look at their response to challenges, Captain Reed pointed to sections of the display. When they needed faster transportation, they built railways. When they needed faster communication, they invented the telegraph. Every problem became an opportunity for advancement. Nix remained skeptical. But see how they exploit their environment. Strip mining, deforestation, pollution. They're destroying their own planet through short-sighted resource extraction. That's what makes them fascinating, Dr. Vale countered. They recognize the problems they create, and then innovate solutions. Solar power, wind energy, recycling technologies. They're already developing sustainable alternatives. The display advanced to the early 20th century, and the alien observers fell silent. 2 global wars dominated the timeline, conflicts of a scale and intensity that shocked even seasoned galactic surveyors. By the void, whispered Cale. They mobilized entire populations for warfare. Industry, science, art, everything became focused on survival. But as the hologram revealed the details, a different picture emerged. The wars had indeed been devastating, but they had also accelerated human development in extraordinary ways. Radar technology, jet engines, computers, nuclear power, rocket propulsion, advances that should have taken centuries were compressed into decades. During their second global war, Dr. Vale explained, they developed computational machines to break enemy codes. These primitive computers led directly to their information age. The display showed the Manhattan Project, scientists from around the world collaborating to unlock atomic energy. They discovered nuclear fission and fusion reactions through pure, theoretical work and experimental validation, Captain Reed noted. No outside assistance, no ancient ruins to guide them, just mathematical brilliance and scientific persistence. Cale studied the human faces in the historical records. Einstein, Curie, Fermi, Oppenheimer, each one driven by curiosity and determination that seemed to burn from within. They don't just adapt to their environment, he realized aloud. They reshape it to serve their needs. The timeline reached the space age. The first satellites, the first humans in orbit, the first steps on their moon, all achieved with what the aliens considered primitive chemical rockets and basic electronics. Commander? Dr. Vale's voice carried a note of revelation. They reached their moon using computers less powerful than our personal communication devices. The calculation precision required, the engineering tolerances, the courage to attempt such a feat with such limited technology. It's unprecedented. Nix pulled up comparative data. The average galactic species achieves spaceflight only after developing fusion power and advanced materials science. Humans did it with chemical combustion and metal alloys. Because they had to, Cale said, understanding beginning to dawn. Every resource limitation forced them to be more creative, more efficient, more determined. The display showed the moon, landing in detail. 3 humans, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, traveling 250,000 miles through the vacuum of space in a craft that seemed impossibly fragile by galactic standards. Yet they succeeded, explored, and returned safely. Their space program was driven by competition between rival nations, Captain Reed observed. Even their greatest achievements emerged from conflict. But Cale was looking beyond the technology now. He saw something in the human story that no other species had demonstrated. An absolute refusal to accept limitations. Whether facing natural disasters, resource scarcity, disease, or the vastness of space itself, humans responded not with resignation, but with innovation. Continue the analysis, he ordered. Show me how they developed from moon exploration to their current state. The holographic timeline advanced into the late 20th and early 21st centuries, revealing humanity's digital revolution. Dr. Vale's instruments registered phenomena that challenged fundamental assumptions about technological development. Personal computing devices became ubiquitous in less than 3 decades, she reported with growing excitement. They miniaturized room-sized computers into portable units more powerful than our survey equipment from 50 years ago. The display showed the evolution from massive mainframes to desktop computers to laptops to smartphones, each generation smaller, faster, more capable. But more remarkable was how quickly humans adapted their entire society around these tools. Global communication networks, Captain Reed highlighted sections of the data. They connected their entire planet through digital networks, allowing instantaneous information sharing across all continents. Cale watched humans collaborating across vast distances, sharing scientific data, coordinating relief efforts for natural disasters, and creating art together without ever meeting in person. Most species develop global unity before expanding into space, he mused. Humans did the opposite. They unified their world through technology while remaining politically fragmented. The internet age brought revelations that stunned the alien observers. Open-source software development, where humans freely shared their most valuable innovations. Crowdfunding for scientific projects. Social media connecting individuals across cultural and linguistic barriers. They're achieving voluntary cooperation on a scale we've never observed, Nix admitted reluctantly. Without central authority, without external pressure, they're choosing to work together. Dr. Vale focused the display on human medical advances. Their understanding of genetics, cellular biology, and pharmaceutical development accelerated exponentially once they could share research globally. They're extending their lifespans, eliminating hereditary diseases, and developing treatments for conditions that plagued them for millennia. The timeline showed humanity's response to global challenges: climate change, pandemics, resource depletion. Each crisis sparked waves of innovation. Solar and wind power became economically competitive with fossil fuels. Electric vehicles transformed transportation. Vertical farming revolutionized agriculture. Look at their response to the pandemic of 2020. Captain Reed pointed to a detailed section. Global cooperation in vaccine development, manufacturing, and distribution. They shared genetic sequencing data within days and created effective vaccines in less than a year. Cale studied the human faces in the records. Scientists working around the clock, medical personnel risking infection to treat patients, ordinary citizens making personal sacrifices for collective benefit. The same resilience that drove them to the moon now mobilized against invisible microscopic threats. Their space program resumed expansion, Dr. Vale continued. Private companies developing reusable rockets, reducing launch costs by orders of magnitude. They're establishing permanent research stations on their moon and planning missions to Mars. The display showed SpaceX rockets landing upright after delivering payloads to orbit, space stations rotating in perfect synchronization, and robotic explorers on Mars transmitting geological data across the solar system. Traditional galactic development models predict stagnation after initial space exploration, Nix observed. Resources become stretched, public interest wanes, progress slows, but humans seem to be accelerating. Because they've learned to make space exploration profitable, Captain Reed realized. Commercial satellites, space manufacturing, asteroid mining prospects. They've created economic incentives for continued expansion. Cale watched footage of humans working in zero gravity, assembling structures larger than any building on their planet's surface. They moved with practiced efficiency, their technology seamlessly integrated with human intuition and problem-solving abilities. The timeline reached the present day, showing humanity's current state. Not the primitive, barely space-capable species Cale had expected, but something far more remarkable. A civilization that had compressed the normal million-year development cycle into mere millennia, through sheer determination and adaptability. They're not behind galactic standards, he said quietly. They're following a completely different development path, one that might be superior to our own. Commander Cale authorized a deeper analysis of human military history, expecting to find the typical pattern of primitive warfare that would confirm their backward status. Instead, the revelations that emerged challenged everything the Galactic Council believed about combat effectiveness and strategic thinking. Their military development parallels their technological advancement, Dr. Vale began, her instruments processing vast amounts of historical combat data. But the sophistication of their tactical and strategic thinking is extraordinary. The holographic display showed ancient battles. Marathon, where outnumbered Greeks defeated a Persian force twice their size through superior positioning and timing. Cannae, where Hannibal encircled and destroyed a Roman army using principles of maneuver warfare that galactic military academies still taught. These battles were fought thousands of years ago, Captain Reed observed. Yet the strategic principles remain valid today. The display advanced through centuries of conflict, each war teaching humans new lessons about logistics, communication, and coordination. The Mongol Empire's communication networks spanning continents, medieval siege warfare driving advances in engineering and metallurgy, naval battles pushing innovations in navigation and shipbuilding. Notice how they adapt, Cale pointed to sections of the timeline. Each defeat becomes a learning opportunity. They don't just recover from losses, they emerge stronger and more capable. The analysis reached humanity's world wars, and the alien observers witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. Entire planetary populations mobilized for conflict on a scale that dwarfed anything in their databases. 16 million humans served in their first global war, Dr. Vale reported, her voice tinged with awe. They coordinated military operations across multiple continents simultaneously, managing supply lines that stretched thousands of miles. The Second Global War revealed even more remarkable capabilities. The D-Day invasion showed 26 nations coordinating the largest amphibious assault in history. The Manhattan Project demonstrated their ability to compartmentalize and manage complex scientific programs under extreme pressure. But look at this. Nix highlighted post-war developments. Instead of maintaining their military focus, they redirected those same organizational capabilities toward peaceful purposes. The interstate highway system, the space program, medical research, all used principles learned during wartime. Captain Reed studied human peacekeeping efforts. They created international organizations to prevent future conflicts. The United Nations, NATO, various humanitarian groups. They're actively trying to evolve beyond warfare while maintaining military readiness. The display showed modern human military capabilities, and the alien crew fell silent. Precision-guided munitions that could strike targets across continents. Stealth aircraft invisible to detection systems. Nuclear weapons capable of devastating entire regions. Cyber warfare capabilities that could cripple enemy infrastructure without physical contact. Their weapons technology is decades ahead of their space technology, Dr. Vale observed. They could have developed interstellar travel by now if they'd focused their military research on exploration instead of conflict. But Cale was studying something else in the data. The human military mindset itself. Stories of soldiers risking everything to save comrades. Military leaders making tactical decisions based on protecting civilian populations. Veterans transitioning their skills to disaster relief and humanitarian work. They've weaponized their greatest strength, he realized. Their willingness to sacrifice for others. Their ability to coordinate under pressure. Their refusal to surrender in the face of overwhelming odds. The timeline showed recent conflicts where technologically superior forces had been defeated by human determination and adaptability. Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, wars where advanced military technology met human resilience and learned hard lessons about the limits of conventional power. Most galactic species avoid conflict through technological superiority or diplomatic isolation, Captain Reed noted. Humans seem to have developed something more dangerous. The ability to make any conflict too costly for their opponents to sustain. Nix pulled up comparative data from galactic military archives. Standard military doctrine assumes technological advantage equals victory, but human military history suggests that determination, adaptability, and willingness to accept casualties can overcome technological superiority. Cale studied footage of human soldiers in combat, small units operating independently, making split-second decisions under fire, coordinating complex operations with minimal communication. Their individual initiative and collective discipline created a military effectiveness that purely technological forces couldn't match. They're not just warriors, he said finally. They're strategic thinkers who've turned survival itself into a military advantage. Any species that threatens them will face opponents who view extinction as preferable to surrender. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't a primitive species stumbling towards civilization. They were apex predators who had weaponized their intelligence, determination, and willingness to sacrifice for collective survival. The analysis shifted to humanity's response, to existential threats, and what the alien observers discovered redefined their understanding of species' survival instincts. Dr. Vale's instruments detected patterns of behavior that existed nowhere else in galactic databases. They don't just survive disasters, she reported, her scientific composure cracking slightly. They prepare for disasters that haven't happened yet. The holographic display showed humanity's asteroid detection networks, scanning the solar system for potential impact threats. Ground-penetrating radar systems monitoring volcanic activity. Seismographic networks predicting earthquakes. Pandemic preparedness protocols updated after every outbreak. Look at their response to the Tunguska event, Captain Reed highlighted. An explosion over Siberia in 1908. A probable asteroid or comet impact that flattened 2,000 square kilometers of forest. Most species would treat it as an unfortunate natural disaster. The display showed humanity's reaction. Immediate scientific investigation, followed by decades of research into impact threats, leading to current programs to detect and potentially deflect dangerous asteroids. They turned a single disaster into a permanent defense system, Cale observed. But more impressive were humanity's preparations for threats that were purely theoretical. The display showed massive seed vaults preserving genetic diversity against potential crop failures. underground facilities designed to preserve knowledge and culture through civilizational collapse, space-based manufacturing capabilities reducing dependence on Earth's resources. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault, Dr. Vale focused on an Arctic facility. They're preserving samples of every known food crop against the possibility of genetic disaster, climate change, or warfare destroying agricultural systems. Nick studied the data with growing unease. They're preparing for scenarios that most species never consider. Supervolcanic eruptions, gamma-ray bursts, artificial intelligence scenarios, genetic engineering disasters. They have contingency plans for extinction events that exist only in theoretical models. The timeline showed humanity's space colonization, efforts in this context. Not just exploration or resource extraction, but species survival insurance. Multiple independent colonies reducing the risk of single-point failure for human civilization. Mars colonization isn't about expansion, Captain Reed realized. It's about backing up their entire species on another world. The display revealed the depth of human planning. Genetic repositories stored in multiple locations. Cultural archives preserved in various formats. Technical knowledge distributed across educational institutions worldwide. They had instinctively created redundant systems for preserving everything. That made them human. But notice this, Cale pointed to recent developments. They're not just preparing for natural disasters. They're actively working to prevent them. Climate change mitigation efforts appeared on the timeline. Renewable energy adoption, carbon capture technologies, international agreements limiting emissions, pandemic prevention, global disease monitoring, vaccine development platforms, international health organizations, nuclear non-proliferation treaties reducing the risk of weapons causing human extinction. They're trying to manage planetary-scale risks through voluntary cooperation, Dr. Vale noted. Without central authority, without external enforcement, just collective recognition that their survival depends on global coordination. The analysis revealed something unprecedented in galactic history. A species that had evolved beyond reactive survival to proactive species preservation. Humans weren't just tough enough to survive disasters, they were intelligent enough to prevent many disasters from occurring. Look at their life extension research. Nix highlighted medical developments. They're not just treating diseases, they're trying to eliminate aging itself. Genetic therapy, regenerative medicine, cybernetic integration. They're working to become individually immortal while ensuring species survival. But what truly amazed the alien observers was humanity's backup planning for their backup planning. Space-based solar power reducing Earth's energy demands. Asteroid mining reducing pressure on terrestrial resources. Artificial intelligence development, creating tools to solve problems too complex for biological minds. They've created a civilization designed to survive anything, Cale said slowly. Natural disasters, wars, resource depletion, technological disasters, even their own extinction. They have countermeasures for every threat we can imagine. Captain, Reed studied the human faces in recent footage. Scientists working on fusion power, engineers designing generation ships, doctors developing life extension therapies, farmers perfecting sustainable agriculture. They're not just surviving, he realized. They're building a civilization that's too resilient to destroy. The implications were staggering. Any species that encountered humanity wouldn't just face determined warriors or innovative scientists. They would face a civilization that had spent millennia learning to survive the unsurvivable, and had developed the technological and social tools to ensure their continued existence regardless of external threats. As the historical analysis reached its conclusion, Commander Cale felt the fundamental assumptions of galactic civilization crumbling around him. The primitive species he had come to survey had revealed themselves to be something unprecedented in the galaxy's long history. Final assessment, Dr. Vale announced, her voice carrying a mixture of scientific excitement and profound concern. Humanity represents a completely novel form of civilization development. They've achieved in 10,000 years what typically requires 1,000,000 years of evolution. The holographic display showed a comprehensive comparison between human development and standard galactic civilization models. Every metric told the same story. Impossibly rapid advancement driven by factors no other species had demonstrated. Their development acceleration isn't random, Captain Reed observed. It's the result of specific traits working in combination, individual initiative, collective cooperation, adaptive learning, risk tolerance, and absolute refusal to accept limitations. Kale studied the data, his four eyes focusing on the most troubling revelation. They haven't just developed advanced technology. They've developed advanced thinking. Every challenge has made them more capable of handling bigger challenges. The timeline projection extended into humanity's near future, showing their likely development paths. Mars colonies expanding into self-sufficient worlds. Asteroid mining operations providing unlimited resources. Fusion power eliminating energy scarcity. Genetic engineering extending lifespans indefinitely. Within 5 centuries, they'll have capabilities that match or exceed anything in the galactic database, Nix admitted reluctantly, and they're achieving it without outside assistance or guidance. But the truly staggering revelation was humanity's long-term potential. The analysis showed theoretical development curves based on their historical patterns. Faster than light, travel within a millennium. Stellar engineering within 10 millennia. Galactic-scale civilization within 100,000 years. They're not just another species joining galactic civilization, Dr. Vale said quietly. They're going to transform it entirely. Kale made his decision. Prepare an immediate transmission to the Galactic Council. Classification, species assessment, revision critical. As his crew worked to compile their findings, Kale composed the most important report of his career. Initial assessment. Primitive. Species, limited potential. Standard first contact timeline of 5 centuries minimum. Revised assessment. Unprecedented civilization development. Technological advancement exceeding galactic norms. Immediate strategic implications for all member species. The report would shock the galaxy. Humanity's rapid development, military capabilities, survival instincts, and innovative thinking represented either the greatest opportunity or the greatest threat the galactic community had ever encountered. Recommendation? Captain Reed asked. Kale looked once more at the blue-green world rotating beneath them. A planet that had seemed so ordinary 12 hours ago now revealed itself as the home of the most remarkable species in galactic history. A species that had turned every disadvantage into an advantage, every challenge into an opportunity, every setback into a stepping stone toward greater achievement. Immediate diplomatic contact, he said finally. Not as a superior civilization, offering guidance to primitives, but as equals recognizing another successful galactic species, and hope they remember that we came in peace when they inevitably surpass us. The transmission burst toward the galactic core, carrying news that would reshape interstellar politics forever. Humanity was no longer an isolated species on the galactic frontier. They were the newest members of a community they would soon lead through the sheer force of their determination to never stop growing, never stop learning, and never accept that anything was impossible. As the Harmony prepared to depart Earth's orbit, Kale realized that they hadn't just discovered a new species. They had witnessed the birth of the galaxy's future leaders, and that future, shaped by human resilience and ingenuity, would be unlike anything the cosmos had ever seen. The age of humanity was about to begin.